Okay, I want to come up here this morning and talk a little bit about Silicon Valley, the housing bubble. The housing bubble. Okay, and we're watching this happen all over the place. It's because of the monetary system, it's because of greed. It's because everything's become a commodity, even something that's an essential for survival for human beings. A home, a roof over their head, okay, has been, well, turned into a commodity being used for the wealthy. As the wealthy run people out. As the wealthy run people out. And then we have the monetary system. Yep, how did they become wealthy? Oh, man made thing called money. Man created. Not controlled by the people, but controlled by greed. You know, when you allow a private entity to take control and own a monetary system of an entire nation, and nowadays we have, well, monetary system being owned by Rothschilds, that's right. Rockefellers, Rothschilds. I know I brought that name up again, didn't I? Yeah. Well, considering it's the Rothschilds is who actually owns the monetary system in America, and you think about the housing bubble, you think about the prices, you can't even afford to live no more. Don't matter, you know. You gotta have two people making, 250, $300,000 a year per person in a high tech job. Okay. And why should anybody have that kind of money to begin with? Well, because they earned it, because they're smarter, and because they took more education. Blah, blah, blah. You make all of your excuses. That's all they are, is all excuses. First off, your monetary system is man created. That's right, man created. And then you allow a private entity to take possession of monetary system and own it and control it. And that very monetary system, your money that you're working to earn to live with, is being held up over your head by these people and used as a weapon to push you out of a life, to pick out who they want to be. And then, of course, we got a system that was set up so that to get ahead, you had to be a psychopath. You had to be a nut job. You had to be willing to not have care. That's right. Because, see, when you don't got care, you don't care whose life you destroy. You don't care who you walk on. You don't care who you step on. To get your own selfish want for your own selfish self. Think about this. In the dating arena, okay, this has been a big influence that's caused division as well. The monetary system. There's been lots of divorces instigated and filed by a female just because the guy don't make enough, or she's upping herself, you know. She found a guy that's making more monetary than somebody else. So the guy she claimed she loved, she threw away for some other guy that she's gonna lie to too. So yeah, I want to come up here today and talk a little off the topic of the dating scene into something that is actually affecting so many people's lives. Money. People have sold their souls out for a man-made thing. We've taken houses and we've made it so people can't afford to get a house, you know. I was laughing earlier as I was listening to this documentary. They're talking about the American dream, okay, is to own your own home. First off, in America, you'll never own your own home unless your name's Rockefeller or Rothschild. Then you got a special piece of paper that says you don't pay property taxes. That's right, because you actually own it. But for the average Tom Joe, which is the majority of all the nation, no, they don't own their house. They've been buffaloed into believing they do. But no, they don't. And they'll never own it because they're not allowed to own it. See, we've allowed a handful of people to take possession of something that should have never been in a private entity's hand. Like the Federal Reserve is privately owned. It's not part of the government. Never has been part of your government. It's owned by the Rothschild dynasty out of Israel. That's right. And they're the ones that own the monetary system here in America, the Federal Reserve. It's used as a weapon against all of us. Okay? Money is the root of all evil. And when you allow a private entity to jump up and own the monetary system, this is why we have what we have going on. It's also played a role in the dating scene. It's played a role in people's lives and relationships because we put monetary value on things that are man-made. And shelter for somebody living in the state I'm in, Nebraska. That's right, Illinois, Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota. Do I need to go on? Wisconsin. Shelter in these environments is vital. A roof over your head is vital for survival. Not no more. Because we don't have care no more. We don't care about anybody else, do we? That's right. We only care about our own selfish gain. We can use a man-made thing to railroad and run over other people and step all over other people. You claim, well, the law says, but what's the law? It's a man-made rule again. You know, you're nothing but used, but the majority of the people in this country, they have nobody to blame but themselves. Because they wasn't willing to stand together thanks to division. They're not smart enough to figure out that these people are using man-made materials to run you over and destroy your life and put you on the streets. And because of division and monetary gain, we have a whole number of women. Of course, it's not all women by a long shot when it comes to gold diggers, right? But unfortunately, the influence of the monetary system, there's people that put their monetary gain or personal items over the top of anybody, including their own children. What we've done through our division is we've managed to create division in every level of life. And so that's where that comes from, you know. And sometimes I just do that to people like that because people like that don't belong in this chat. Isn't that funny how they got kicked out? So, you know, I could have closed this chat and none of you people would even be in here. You know, but you always got to have the screwball coming along that's already psychopathic, that's already a nut job. You know, I actually possess something the majority of people don't possess anymore. It's called care. That's the reason I come up here and I fight back against the corruption. That's the reason I stand up for men, because men are the ones getting the shaft. Not that women ain't getting the shaft, but when you really look at reality of what's going on, men have been getting the shaft for years. When's the last time you saw 30 years worth of female bashing all over your media? Oh, that's right, you never have. Men are nothing but disposable objects. Okay, and if you have a house, you think the house is American dream, huh? Well, George Carlin was right. You have to be asleep. That's why you believe it, because it's a dream. And then when you wake up, you realize, oh, I was just dreaming. Because you haven't woke up. Actually gets to be pretty pathetic. No, I'm not going to say gamers are the most oppressed. That would be nonsense. I'm not going to listen to nonsense. Okay? That right there would be a complete nonsense statement. Completely off the fucking chart. Gaming is programming to remove you from reality. I got nothing against gamers or people who love video games, but it's not reality. If you're crying because I'm banning people who are throwing insults, I got something for you. It's called a diaper and all. Would you want a Kleenex to wipe your tears? You don't have a right to come in here and start throwing names. Okay, if you're in here just to make trouble, I just get rid of you. I don't have to acknowledge you. Why would I want to acknowledge an idiot? That's where that comes from. I'm not going to acknowledge an idiot. The reality is there's a whole lot more in life to getting somebody else in your life, a woman. And a doll, a love doll. Well, you go ahead and get your love doll, okay? I mean, that's your prerogative. If you want to make love to something fake, go ahead. There's a tree outside that maybe needs some attention. You could even get a drill and drill a hole in it. It's ridiculous. I see Harry's with me. Hey, Harry, how you doing? It was nice talking to you. You know where I'm at. I wanted to talk about the housing bubble. I wanted to talk about the homeless. I wanted to talk about our monetary system. I wanted to talk about what all you fools are hooked up on and how many people have sold their soul out for evil when it comes to money. Yeah, when it comes to money. I understand they've used money as money's what you need. You got to go to work, get a job. You got to be successful, right? You got to have money to live, right? Well, it's money. It's a man-made thing. Being owned by private entity like the Federal Reserve in the United States. Being used as a weapon against the people. See, there's certain things in life, if you care, but see, having compassion or empathy for other people, you claim as weak. Not at all. Well, everybody else said it was weak. Well, I know that's because you're thinking with the I have mine in the jar because you ain't got the ability to think with your own brain. Because somewhere along the way, you've lost how to use your own brain. You don't possess common sense. You don't possess critical thinking skills. But what you do possess is your tail between your legs and scared shitless over anybody with a position. That's right. Because you don't stand up for yourselves. That's the reason we're in this shape. That's the reason there's so many people displaced and run out of where they were at because rich people moved in. Silicon Valley is no different. That's the home of who? Of all of the psychopaths, the nut jobs, who come up and stifle free speech. Why? Because, well, they're paying me a man-made thing. When you have house after house, hundreds and hundreds of homes that are sitting vacant, abandoned. You even got China come over here. There's NWO for you right in your face. And went in and bought all kinds of real estate. And they're leaving it abandoned. This is no accident. This is deliberately done. They're using your monetary system against you. And most people are just too docile and stupid to understand that. They just think this is all just normal. This is the way it's always been. Well, no, it's never always been this way at all. As a human being, everybody deserves shelter. And if you can live in a climate that has snow in the winter and cold days, you deserve shelter. And if you go out and break your butt and work your ass off, you work all day long to earn money, you should make enough money to allow you to have a roof over your head. Not work your ass off just to barely feed yourself and live in a cardboard box or a tent. While other people walk around you and say it's normal. There ain't nothing normal about it. It's the loss of care. It's disgusting behavior by other human beings wanting to walk over the top of somebody else. See, I don't walk over the top of other people. I tell you how I feel and what I think. And if you don't like it, I personally don't care. Because I'm not here because of fame. I'm not here for money. Everything I've done online has been from my heart. And because I do actually care. And the reason we're in the shape we're in is because we've allowed ourselves to be in this shape by turning our backs and looking the other way. By believing anything a TV set fed you, or your music fed you, or your video games fed you. By not looking into anything yourself because you're lazy. By not practicing using your own brain. Yeah, well, I feel for you there. But see, there you're in an environment where you have winter, right? And it's too cold. That's right. Now, can you imagine working your tail off all day long and not even making enough money to pay your freaking mortgage or your rent? Now, imagine you're living somewhere and some wealthy people move in and start taking over. Let's say your mortgage is costing you freaking $800 a month. Next thing you know, your mortgage went up to 4 or 5,000 a month, or 8,000 a month even. Well, so much for your house. Well, let's just say you've been paying on a house for freaking 20 years or 15 years. Let's say you've been spending $1,000 a month on your mortgage for 15 years. That's a whole lot of work and a whole lot of money. Then some rich baboon rolls in and freaking takes over the industry. And next thing you know, your mortgage went up to $8,000 a month. You can't afford it. And then they come in and foreclose on your home and they take your home away from you. And you got 15 years worth of mortgage that you paid out the door, gone, wasted. You'll never get it back. 15 years of labor to buy that house that you thought was yours. See, this is because we're not controlling people with their damn money. A man made thing is being used as a weapon against millions of people. And it's no accident that this is going on. It's deliberate. I got a suggestion for you. What if these bankers and these tycoons come in and do that, and we go ahead and we just turn everything around on them? We start fighting back. People don't want to think about what's really going on. And it actually pisses me off. I really do. I get somewhat like annoyed over it, just because the reality is what the reality is. Okay? And I'm not going to play that game with people. I refuse to. Let's see if this thing will keep working. Because I didn't bring this up into a chat. We got to see if it'll recognize my audio. Okay? I just know that it's getting worse and worse, and I'm looking at what's going on around me. And it's not very kosher. I mean, I get a little bit upset. And so I want to come up here and do this live feed on this topic. Yeah, I want to talk about what's going on with our monetary system. I want to talk about the homeless people. I want to talk because I actually care. I want to talk about what's really going on outside of the dating scene. With that being said, I believe I have somebody in here with me. Welcome aboard.
Hey, what's up, Bill?
I want to come up here and have a rant about our monetary system and how people have allowed what's going on because people are allowing what's going on.
Bill, there's multiple factors with the monetary system. You talk about the job, you talk about, how the rich people buy up these big tracts of land, like in the state of Maine or like Idaho. All these Californians move to Idaho, and the things like a lot of blue collar guys, a lot of blue collar people might fantasize moving to these places, but now they're being bought up by wealthy people. So you have to be kind of a person that follows the trends, and you got to be aware of what's happening so that you can't get sucked into that type of thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, Steve, when you let wealthy people come in and start taking everything, what happens is like homes. See, a home isn't a commodity. A
Right.
home, if you're living, okay, even yourself. Can you imagine not being working your tail off and all the money you're making, Steve, wasn't enough to pay for your mortgage or pay for the home that you live in?
Even if your house is paid off, the taxes will kill you because In my situation, I got a sewer coming in that we needed a sewer in storm sewers like or storm drains like we need a second hole in our head. Everything worked fine. And so what happens is wealthy people will take over. They'll buy a tract of land. They want to lay out about 1,000 Ryan homes. They need sewers because on a small lot, you really can't run a septic system without what's called a mound system, which is a big mound in your yard, which people don't want to have that. So they decide, oh, let's get the sewer project passed. And they make up fake data, which is lies, that septic tanks are dirty systems, which is not true. It's the most environmentally friendly way to go if you can do it right.
It is. It's
So
just you got to have a leach field with your septic system, and
right, right, but there's all these anaerobic and aerobic bacteria that eat up. But here's the point, though, is that you never know when this stuff is coming. You have to have communities where they stop this from happening, and it is possible to pass a bill to say, look, we're going to have a homeowners association, or our community is not going to allow these big builders to come in here or these wealthy people. But it's very strategic, and everybody sells out. That's another big problem. If you have a corrupt city council, they all sell out. Every one of them does.
that was
This,
that you're correct about that. You know, that's one of the reasons my rant is about the monetary system is because
right.
people are selling out other people, not even giving a think about somebody that's breaking their butt and ain't got no college degree and's been 15, 20 years paying for the mortgage on their house, and you come in and take over. Next thing you know, they okay for monetary gain, we're going to up the value of this. Okay, so let's see, Steve, your mortgage was 800 a month. Now suddenly it's 2,000 a month. See what I'm saying?
No. Well, it's a lot of problems. And the guy that helped me do that septic sewer activism that short period of time told me that he told a story about a community that was corrupted by city council. The building engineer bought them all vacations, a Bahama cruise vacations, and they probably valued about 5,000 per person on city council. But this was in another town in a different state, and this had happened. And so, yeah, everybody, I'll tell you something, Bill. I don't know how the human ego is a big thing because you try to educate people, but you realize their heart is in the wrong place. And most people, I found out just doing like political activism on a small level, most people, it's like 1 in 1,000 that might join hands with you. Most people are either too busy or they're afraid to hear the truth. They don't want to be inconvenienced, and lo and behold, they're going to get the sewer bill. Just like towns that allow wealthy people to buy up their land, they're going to get the big tax hikes and everything else that goes along with it.
Well, that's correct, Steve. And think about this: when you look, I would have been watching a few documentaries and looking what's been really going on. And when you look at the reality of the monetary system, and you look at the reality of whether if you're in New York or if you're in California, up there in Los Angeles or whatever, or even Silicon Valley. That's the reason I put this on this live stream, okay? Because you got people that grew up there that are in their homes that they've been in for 40 years. You got one woman that was in her home, she's up in her 80s now, for 45 years, and suddenly she's being foreclosed on her home.
I got to,
Suddenly she's out of a home.
well, I got to tell you something. That's funny that you mentioned that because when I did my activism, that was one of the issues that the older residents weren't going to be able to afford to live in their home. And I talked to this wealthy old guy. You know what? Old wealthy people have no use for poor wealthy people. I mean, poor old people. They treat them like dog shit too, because this guy that I sat down with, he was the one who owned a lot of property that was trying to push this sewer issue. He said to me, we were eating dinner, and believe it or not, I sat down with him and talked. And what he said to me was, I said, "Don't you care about a lot of these older people?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "They're going to get old and have to retire, and they'll die, and then the new owners will take up pay off the bill or whatever." So it was kind of like, they're they're very pragmatic about the way they think. Wealthy people have a totally different psychology, and until the educated middle class, which I use that term loosely, I don't think there's much education. Until people really get off their butts, this kind of stuff will continue because people aren't aware of how displaced you can be just by letting this nonsense happen. Whether you means people transplanting themselves that have money. I mean, even if you own a house worth $8 million in California, which isn't much, that buys a lot of property in these states and then drives up the property. Like you said, it's
Yes. You
Yeah,
gotta you gotta flood a house of Steve over in Silicon Valley, okay, which is a 40-mile stretch. You
yeah.
got a flood of neighborhoods with houses that China came in here and they actually bought up a bunch of these houses and they're sitting vacant and they're just let to go to waste. Nobody's living in them. Nobody's allowed to live in them because they're owned by China.
So are they trying to crash the well, if that brings down the housing, that's fine. I don't think it will because no matter how bad things get in California, there's always people willing to pick up the bill. I
That's
mean,
it. That's exactly it. It's not about bringing down the prices. I mean, it's about pushing people out of where they don't want them.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So in other words, it's the way this wealth travels. I mean, Bill, I don't want to call myself or yourself a loser, but maybe a lot of us were not. I would say most people are not in a position to even comprehend the kind of money that a lot of people in this country have. There's such a
Oh yeah. Well, they were talking about this, and the average tech that works for Google is making right around $250,000 a year.
wow.
Okay, so you figure if an average tech that's working for Google is being paid $250,000 a year, and some of the property up there, they're talking about a married couple. Both couples have to be making about that much money a year to survive.
Yeah,
See, and now that's just see. This is why I talk about when you have a private entity owning ownership of a monetary system of a nation, you should never allow that because you're allowing this private entity to own what you're working your butt off to live for. And so it's just like what you talked about, the mentality of the rich people. This is what greed does.
right.
This is why I said greed actually destroys the human mind. It's just like the ego. Okay, you go corrupt. You don't have care. The only care you have is for yourself, and your idea is to get ahead. And how do we get ahead in America? By stepping on other people.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not good. It's an ugly situation, but it's there's not much you really can say about it. I mean, it's just I mean, if you don't have a wife and kids, maybe you're better off because then you spend your whole marriage being stressed out trying to figure out, how are we going to pay the taxes and move on to the next. And then I don't know. I mean, I don't have a way to know what people make, but I sometimes wonder how people are making it today. I really don't understand it. I don't understand how they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's sad, Steve, because I have a heart and I care. I feel this way. If you're a human being living on this earth and you're going out and breaking your butt and working, you deserve to at least have the luxury of having a house. Maybe it's a little house, maybe it's a little this, but you need a roof over your head that you could call home and it's yours. Not having rich people come in and run everybody off and think about it. You spend 30 years paying for a house and you almost got it paid off, and then some rich people come in and start taking over. Next thing you know, the banks decided, well, if your house is now worth more money, so you're a long ways from paying it off, and you just spent 30 years paying on it. They don't care.
Bill, you know how people rationalize this behavior? Let's say you're a teacher living in a small town, and let's say that you realize that you're going to pay an extra 500 to 1,000 $500 a year in salary, okay, or in taxes, but your net salary gain in your job is going to be $1,000 or 3,000 because of the tax hike. People are so self-centered that they're only individually looking at what it's going to do for them.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, we just got so many people that said that this has gotten way out of control. I was looking at one gal who actually is, hold on here a minute. So we got somebody in here with a mask on their face.
Hello.
A mask on their face. Oh my God, is he that paranoid?
Yeah. And so what are you here for, the troll?
Fucking done.
That's all right. I just removed him. See how fast that happens? See, what they done is they got a hold of the information to call in, Steve, and they think they can use it to troll.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that I actually have control over that.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're gone. Just that quick. I'm not going to mess around with idiots. This is a serious topic I'm talking about, and we're not going to play games because the reality is what the reality is. I was looking at one gal. She was living in a place that was a rental, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her rent was she's up there in California, man. She was paying like $3,500 a month for a rent. Then she got a notice in the mail that the house has been bought. Her house was sold to somebody else. They're going to allow her to stay in it and continue to rent it, but her new rent was $8,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she couldn't afford $8,000 a month. So now what happened? She's looking for another place to live.
Bill, the typical mentality of the masses is this. Well, if I were rich, I would be that too. You know, people. I think, Bill, individually, people don't take action until something directly affects them, and that's I use that sparingly because it seems that people are just so. I don't know what I feel like we're in like a twilight zone comatose state when you look at all this craziness going on. I don't know what they've done to people. I feel like I'm in like a science fiction movie.
Yeah. I agree with you there, Steve. It's just if people could just get it through their heads, the monetary system is a man made thing. And when you start going so corrupt that you don't care about other human beings to the point that you're willing to put families on the street, children and all, and not care if they die even because it's all about yourself, this is when people really need to grow a brain
Right.
because the monetary system is a man made thing. I
Well, Bill,
mean,
I don't know. I don't know if how you would solve it. I mean, you're talking the monetary system. We're talking about wealthy people buying a property. How do you conflate those two? I mean, how do you compare those two together? We've got two separate issues.
I know. I don't know if there's a way to solve it, Steve. I could never
Yeah, don't.
promise
I
that.
mean, you're making it look. You're going on about the monetary system. This is stuff that can be controlled even with the present monetary system. Number one, towns have done this before. When Ryan Holmes buys up the Smith family farm, okay, the kids get it's another selfish thing. The kids don't want to keep the farm, so they sell it. They sell it to some big builder. The only way they can build on that big farm property, like they put those shitty Ryan box homes there, is if the city council approves of it. Okay, now if you have a corrupt city council and they're promised a lot of perks like free vacations and probably grafting. That kind of shit goes on. It goes on at every freaking level. It probably is what happened in my town, where the sewer project, even under a second mayor, which the second mayor could have stopped this, by the way, but they go along with the program. And this I think they're. I can't prove it, of course, just all conjecture, but I believe behind the scenes there's a lot of grafting that goes on all the time, like free, it's got to be. What else could explain how a city engineer can come into a town and get the whole city council to vote for something that is not in the best interest of the people?
The
Other
only,
than,
yeah,
yeah, go
greed.
ahead.
I would have to say greed, Steve.
Hmm.
That's the biggest problem I think we have is people's mentalities have been lost when they lost their care.
Yeah.
Getting ahead, they don't care how much money, okay,
No.
because it's not about that. It's about the fact that I have, you don't. I'm better than you and I'm above you because their ego becomes overinflated along with the money they have and they're on a different level. It's just like when I was doing maintenance for the Holiday Inn up in Tarpon Springs, Florida, the
Hmm.
original owners was three guys, right? Two of
Hmm.
them walked away from it and left the other owner to take the bag. He lost the motel. A management company through the bank came in and took over the motel and managed it. I kept my job, right?
Hmm.
Then they sold the motel. Okay. Now we got new owners, right? Which was again three different people who went in to buy the place, right?
Yeah, they changed the whole format.
Oh, they not only changed the whole format, but oh my God, there was this guy, one of the owners, Dave, who came in and took the manager's office and was running things, right? And they already had motels in other places. So these guys were already wealthy to begin with. This guy was so arrogant, and so was his kid that was coming in there. He was like 11 years old. They were looking down at all the employees and treating us like we were nothing but cattle
Right.
because they have, you know what I'm saying? He
Yeah,
would
and then
say,
you know what?
Cars, go ahead.
They they don't have any compassion, like you said. And this rift between rich and poor has spread itself to the stupid masses. When I've complained to people about, like, let's say something like going to a ball game and spending $10 on a fucking hot dog, or a $10 for a beer, people have this attitude, well, if I owned that stadium, I would charge that too, wouldn't you? And no, I look at them and say, no, I wouldn't charge that. Excuse me, don't say I would be that way too. I hate that when people say, well, I would, you would be that way too, wouldn't you? I say, no, I wouldn't be like that. Okay, so, oh, the masses are stupid. I mean, Bill, I don't like to individually judge people. Even when I did my sewer activism or anti-sewer activism, I didn't sit there individually and say, "Oh, this person is a lemming or a sheeple." But when I look at the mass of people, I have to say, yes, there is a mass mentality, Bill. There's
Well,
got to be.
that I agree. You have a mass mentality, but wrong is wrong and right is right.
Right.
Okay.
I can't go to 10 people's houses and individually judge those 10. If I go to 100 people's houses and explain to them what is going on, and I cannot individually judge that person because I don't know their life and their trials, tribulations. But if of those 100 people, not one person shows any interest in what I'm doing that's going to affect them personally, it tells me there is such thing called the masses. There is a mass mentality. There's got to be. You know, people say, I had one guy get upset with me one time. He said, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard. That you think that the masses are stupid. He goes, we're all individual people. I says, yes, we think we are, but we're really not. Because in the essence of things, people's behavior as the masses does reflect individually how they are in a large in you know, just I understand everybody's got their own individual circumstances to keep them maybe from being an activist. But when you've got, out of, let's say, 500 to 1,000 people I witnessed to or sent my messages, I walked the neighborhood 4 times, and only a couple people really show any interest. It tells me there is a problem. There is a, and it's probably within the town I'm into. I don't think, here's another thing, I've heard this term, I want to move where the people are progressive. I don't think there is any progressive place to move. I really don't, because the ego is so big, Bill. Where are you going to find progressive people if that, whatever that term means, you know?
I totally understand you. You know, my complaint on the monetary system is, of course, I've got no way of solving or fixing it, but it really comes down to the fact that having care.
Bill,
Okay.
I think we should get off the kick of just saying the monetary system, because that's very ambiguous what you're talking about. I like to break it down to what is happening that you can physically see. And what I see is, right, like you said, people don't give a shit, but they don't even care about their own destruction. Because if people really cared even about themselves, they would look and say, hey, this is a problem. But I think people just kind of think things will figure themselves out. And this is what happens when you let, if you leave in a building abandoned, the pipes break. If it's not raided by robbers to steal the copper, the pipes will burst, critters will get in there, it'll dilapidate. You have to maintain a society, and we don't have a maintained society. I don't know where society is going off the Richter scale. There is no real controlling this thing in the large scale of things.
I understand what you're saying, and I know the monetary is a big thing that throws a lot of people off. But if you want to think about it just for the aspect, the monetary system is your money, okay,
Yeah.
and it's what people are working for, and it is what decides if you eat, if you have a roof over your head, right? But there's got to be something you can do, or people get off their mentality and realize that if you got a family with kids in it and people spending years paying their mortgage and struggling to make it, and then you allow rich people to come in and banks and people who don't care just come in and make it so that family can't afford it no more. I mean, we're walking on top of people, stepping on top of people, destroying lives with no care.
Bill, I agree, but this even poor people have this mentality that if they were rich, they would be that way too. They have literally brainwashed the poor, downtrodden, to think that, like, I look at these people that don't have a pot to piss in and idolize pro athletes and famous people. It's like, why do you have this attitude that if you could be famous, you'd be that way too? And it's almost like they give a green light to shitty behavior.
They're giving a
And
green light to psychopaths being completely careless, okay? I mean, what do you think these people, how about we take this one for example? Okay, so you got that mentality that Steve's talking about. And you got your money and you got your business, and your business maybe is what made you successful, right? And you got all this
yeah,
money, but how did you run your business? If you got a manufacturing plant, if you got a motel or whatever, didn't you have to count on other people to do your work for you to run it?
hmm
So and if everybody walked off their job at that spot and said, "No, I'm not doing this," okay, you either going to start caring about other people, or we're just going to you can do all the work yourself, because they're not getting their success, okay, by themselves. They're getting their success off the backs of other people.
Bill, the biggest problem I have with moving to a small city where you have a septic in your own well is if some builder moves in, you're starting this shit all over again. You got to understand that things are constantly in flux. And just because you live in the country doesn't mean that some fucking builder is going to come out there, buy the property, raise taxes, force you on sewers, force you on their system. And before you know it, your little cozy low tax getaway now becomes a fucking bastion for millionaires and yuppies. And not to mention these idiots that move into these goddamn homes, these fuckers that live in these box homes. And I don't like to judge people, but I was a service technician for a mom and pop company, and I know firsthand the types of people that live in these fucking Ryan homes and these Pulte homes. They're just a bunch of conformists, is all they are. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, Bill, I can judge. I'm sorry to offend people that might live in these Ryan home developments, but I can judge. I could go into enough homes and see the bullshit, see the conformity, see the kind of mentality. These people don't even think about the environment. Do you understand what you do when you got to have this huge 4,000 square foot home so you can keep up with the Joneses, and you don't even have any property? That's the funny thing. They live on these small little fucking parcels that are less than a quarter acre, including the size of the house. They don't have shit. And then it's and there are no trees. There's no squirrels in your backyard. There's no raccoons, or people may not like raccoons, but there's nothing there to give it any. And this is the mass mentality now. It's not just rich people; it's wannabe rich people too.
yeah,
And
I understand what you're saying, and you're correct about what you're saying. But my heart digs has always been just the way it is. Maybe I got in a spaceship and crashed and didn't know it and landed on this planet, and I don't belong here, because I'm telling you, I have care for everybody and I only want what's right for everybody. And when it comes to a roof over a person's head, I don't give a shit how broke they are. They're out there breaking their butt for a living. Okay, we got to do something to control people who come in and buy rental property and run it out. Because how are you going to say, they claim buying a house is the American dream, and
yeah,
I have to say George Carlin was right. It's a dream. You're sound asleep. You haven't woke up because you don't own your house. Because even Steve owns his house, but does he really own his house? How much
no,
money?
no, and not to mention what the taxes are going to go up to, because they want to charge us a 20. I know they said it's 12,765, but it's an open-ended contract, which means the price could go up. So they're going to add this on to our taxes. I could be paying 5-6 grand a year in taxes just to live in a house worth 125 grand. That's
Yeah,
fucking insane. That's
it is.
fucking really,
Well,
yeah.
in California, you have Prop 13, which limits them to taxing you 1% of what you paid on for the home.
Right, right. And that's good. But we don't have that in Cuyahoga County. It's an open-ended bid. And if these fucking local school districts keep raising taxes, and by the way, this is the mindset of a teacher in a town, let's say North Olmsted or Olmsted Falls or Berea, whatever city you live in, Cuyahoga County. If the tax hike, let's say you live in that town and you teach in that town. If the tax hike is going to get me a $3,000 a year a raise in my salary, but it's going to raise my taxes 500 only, I'll take the tax hike. I'll promote it, because everybody is individually out for them fucking selves. They don't care about the other people, the 99% that are not teachers and faculty members in these fucking school boards. They just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. That's all these fuckers do. And these stupid voters vote this shit in all the time. I
Well,
mean,
that's why Ben Franklin said that democracy is just two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, right?
what's a joke? Well, what I think our forefathers are rolling in their graves when if they could see this society, what it's become. And I think it's really, I think that some people have, I've heard a lot of historians say that the Civil War, the losing of the South in the Civil War was when the country radically changed. And so it's not, this change may have started prior or shortly after the Civil War ended, because that's when the robber barons came in. That's really when these big billionaires started, or millionaires started buying up tracts of land. And this was maybe a process that we went through, but we're in a different phase in our existence now. I don't know the answer for it. I say, if you're a MGTOW, stay single as long as you can. Maybe you can get through the weather.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's unfortunately as corrupted as to a point that, and when I see this kind of stuff, it just really gets to me because I actually care. I don't want to see people homeless because they broke their butt and they're living in a tent and they're still working a decent job, but they're living in a tent. I don't want to see families that can't even, you're going to put all your money out to some landlord and now you can't feed your kids this month.
Well, you can do what SBO is doing. He's living in a small town. That's a good way to get away from it for a while. But the problem is buying a house in a small town. That's tricky, because if you do buy one in a small town, number one, you have to have a job that's within reasonable commute. And then you also have to have the ability to know that you're going to have an honest, you're not going to bring some developer to tear up your beautiful paradise and turn it into a shithole. And that's what every time I drive on these country roads, I'm seeing these Ryan Home developments popping up everywhere. And it's like, in order for a Ryan Home development to exist, you have to have enormous amount of sewage that has to be, the infrastructure is so expensive to put those developments
That's
in.
the insurance check.
Okay, somebody's making noise in the background. Bill,
Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right.
but you have to have a huge infrastructure to do that. And then in the process of doing that, you drive up the taxes for everybody else that can't afford. Of course, the rich people just say, well, screw that, because those people need to be out of there anyway. They can't afford it. So I am done.
Yeah, well, it actually just pisses me right on off because the reality is what it is. We have to figure out a way to get people on a little bit of some kind of something to stop people from being able to come in and buy up a bunch of rental property, buy it out from underneath somebody's renting it, and hike the price so high that now you got all these homeless people that are working.
Well, the person buying it is taking a big risk too.
That's it. That's the precariousness of buying these properties, though. Like, I'd like to move maybe 50 miles out of Cleveland, but the problem is not so much being a new guy in a small town, because I can deal with being alone. I mean, it's kind of par for the course. It's that if you buy that house, are they going to bring some developer in there in 10 years? Well, I'm getting to the point now where at my age, I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just an ugly, how do you stop this change from happening? I hate this expression. It's so lame, but things are constantly in flux, meaning they're changing. But I guess it's the truth, is that you got to be aware of change, because change happens so fast, Bill. Like, look at the guys that want to go to these foreign countries to meet women. These, in the last 10, 12 years, these so-called getaway areas of the world have changed, where their feminism is hit rampant. So we're talking about that. We're talking about an economic issue today. It's the same thing. You can't assume that you can run away to Idaho only to find out that the area around you is being bought out by millionaires, and next thing you know, your taxes are through the roof. And who wants a bunch of rich pricks living by them?
Yeah. I think the message that I'm getting from you is that you can't live your life thinking that you're going to buy some little house on the homestead and then have a happy little forever leave it to beaver lifestyle or whatever, a little house on the prairie lifestyle. You have to keep things fluid in your life. You have to make sure that you don't pack your house with junk. You have to keep your house. If you do buy a house, make sure you keep it sparse and clean so that you can sell if things change in the community that you live in. Yeah, stay moving.
I got neighbors in my neighborhood that fought me on the sewer project. They even went as far to fight to get me off the ballot to get my opponent to beat me. And here's what bothers me: 3 of them got for sale signs on their house now. Now they knew I know why they're selling their houses. They're selling their houses because they don't want to pay the sewer bill. This ridiculous 20 grand or whatever it's going to cost to run that pipe past your house. 10 grand to hook it. Bill, can you pause your microphone? Something is going on in the background. It's driving. Okay, thank you, Bill. I keep hearing all this rustling. Thank you, Bill. But I wanted to just make this point because, yeah, you got to be, and I'll say this to you, SBO, because you live out in the country. You can't get euphoric to believe that your little paradise could last like that forever. It could be
Yeah,
changed within a couple years.
I told you when I was on your show a few months ago. Like I told you, my sewage bill went
Yo,
from 30
Bob.
a month to 80 a month, and the way they do that is they have I guess it's
I
in their law
paused my
books that
microphone a minute. I don't
when
know how
they
long the
send you
show's
a
gonna
letter in
go.
the mail saying they're raising their
Sign
rates,
this, get
anyone who
Clearwater's
doesn't reply
address,
to
and
that
get that
mail
frickin'
or doesn't
priority
show
to
up to the
them.
meeting, you're counted as a yes
Because
vote for
they,
that
for whatever
raising,
reason,
that
my
increase in the
name's on
rate.
it too.
Oh, that's
But
real
it says
democracy for you. Isn't that
paid to the
crazy?
order
Why
of you.
not consider it a no
So
vote?
you're gonna have to sign
Yeah,
it
Okay,
back.
exactly.
I mean, why
Okay,
does
I
it?
don't know if I need my
That's
signature on that or not.
democracy has become a sham.
I don't know.
Philosophers
You
throughout
might
the
want to
last couple
call.
hundred years have said there have been some great authors that have talked about what a sham democracy really is.
Oh yeah,
Because
Ben Franklin,
democracy,
See if he's
guy
gonna
that
ask him if
if
he needs
you
those
own the main,
signatures.
if you own
They can get
if
Clearwater
first of all, if you can
Financial's
brainwash
address
people and control them,
and get that damn thing
democracy is a
going.
sham because people aren't even thinking their own thoughts.
I'm in the middle of a
yeah,
live
that's
stream when
why.
it shows
Have
up.
you read Plato's like the Republic? That's why he said like it doesn't work because you have to have the people who are thinking a little
Yeah,
bit.
right. I've never read Plato's Republic, and I know it was above and beyond what I was used to reading when I was a kid. I used to read a lot of fiction, but I would like to read it. But I think that what did Plato get into detail about all that, all of the human condition?
Yeah, he just talked about how most of the people are not awake and are not thinking, and so you can't
That's
trust
my
them to control
third
things.
hospital bill, and it's all dated from September.
Yeah, I had my microphone muted, and I'm going to do it again, except for when I want to talk. I just
Bill,
wanted to.
Bill, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your show, but keep it muted when you're not talking because it's like I get all this background noise and I can't focus when I'm talking.
Oh,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. I unmuted it just for a moment to make sure everybody was still hearing you guys, and when I muted it, it didn't somehow override the program.
Well, SBO, anyways, like you're living out in the country. Good luck to you, man. I mean, I have enough wisdom in the world to know how change works. I've lived almost 50 years, so the change basically is always be expecting the worst. Don't get euphoric to believe that there's some happy progressive paradise out there
Yeah,
that where all the people think alike. I had a friend that moved back in the late 90s. He moved to Sedona, Arizona, and of course he said, "Oh, the people there are spiritual and everything." And he comes to find out that Sedona, Arizona was way overpriced and it was just a spiritual mecca for a bunch of wealthy phonies. And I said, yeah, well, I'll tell you, spirituality would be bringing strangers into your home. I mean, it's just insane. He's worked side jobs and he'd lived with people all the time. And he'd say, yeah, these people treat me like garbage, or he'd run into a few people that would do that to him. So he was kind of a vagabond. He would travel, but Sedona was not this spiritual mecca. It all depends on the individual, how you want to live, what you choose to do. And also judge people by their actions. Don't judge them by what they say they're going to do or what they claim they are. Judge people by their actions. And that's all you have to do. If a woman is willing to take a job making $12 an hour changing adult diapers, chances are she's a good person. Just judge people by their actions, not their friggin' words and their. That's why celebrities are the biggest phonies. They're absolutely insane. When celebrities talk about fighting poverty and corruption, yet they're so fake.
Well, that I agree with totally. I mean, if you judge people by their actions, you're actually getting how they really are.
Steve, someone's trying to get your attention in the chat. He's asking you, have you ever considered moving to Southern Ohio or Kentucky? Isn't it cheaper there?
Yeah, it is. Southern Ohio would not be bad. In fact, you don't even have to move to Southern Ohio. I could move to about Central Ohio. There's towns within 50 miles that are off the beaten path that haven't been touched. So I want to stay as long as my mom is alive. And I'll tell you why I want to stay in Ohio. It's the only state that does not have a tax on food that I'm aware of. Every other state that I've gone to has a sales tax on food, and I think that that's a big issue when it comes down to saving money. I mean, all the southern states were all tax crazed states. They taxed you on everything. So don't think moving down south is cheaper. It's bullshit. The wages suck and the taxes are high. So I would rather stay in Ohio, anywhere in Ohio. Cuyahoga County has become so developed. The only wooded areas left are our beautiful Metro Park system, which nobody has touched yet. I could see they'll sell it to the Chinese one day. They'll probably sell the metro parks and they'll build billionaire homes within the park, and it'll be like a giant gated community one day. I can see that happening.
Yeah,
Here,
you know what? The problem with moving around a lot though is like you got to restart your friendships, your relationships. You got to feel like an out,
yeah,
even in a big city. Like you don't just go out to a place to eat or a bar alone. You know, so it's like it's starting to
no,
start
no,
all that.
and this is something I want to tell you else about that. Speaking of that, when you move around a lot, you almost don't deserve to have a big social group because you cannot develop community based on moving around a lot. I think the reason why these small towns are very close minded because they've had 5 generations of, let's say, German immigrants. Let's say these people, and I have a lot of German, a lot of the hillbillies in Ohio are German. Okay. So let's say you got 5, 6 generations of this living in a small town. They kind of get to know each other and they don't all necessarily fit in the pecking order at the high end, but they got a common ground and they develop that kind of semblance of community, whether it's good or bad. Whereas if you're an outsider and you move into this town, they're going to see you as just somebody that's potentially going to put a monkey wrench in their little community. So I understand that you, in a weird kind of way, that I don't expect to move somewhere else and get a sense of community because it doesn't happen. I don't know the answer to that, SBO. I really don't. I mean, because do you feel like you deserve to be treated like a king in a town that you've never lived in, but say a month?
No, but I think that one of the solutions to that is you might have to if you want community and you're going to move to a new city or a new little town, I think the solution is get a job in a retail or get a job in somewhere where you're in the community. I mean,
Yeah,
assuming you can afford it, of course. But then, I mean, because
yeah.
that's basically what I did. I just kind of do retail, grocery store kind of jobs, and even when I'm off
If you
work
can
and I
find a
go,
job, some jobs won't even. I lived in a small town not far from where I live now, maybe 30, 40 miles. And I was like unemployed at the time and I was living off my savings and I didn't want to burn through them. And I tried to get a job locally and it was not easy. So it depends on the small town. You may not get a job in that small town.
Actually,
It,
actually, I do agree with that, Steve, because
yeah.
it would
I
actually
went
really
to a,
depend
I
on
went
the
to a,
community.
I went to a local pizza place in the town, and there were like 5 or 6 pizza places there now. I said to the guy that owned it, I said, because I knew him, as I lived not too far from him, maybe a block or so or less. And I said to him, and do you have any jobs? He kind of shook his head. He goes, no, I'm not really. He was being honest with me. He was just him and his girlfriend running it. And I thought, well, all I needed was like about 7, 8 bucks an hour to kind of pad the rent. And I thought, man, that's crazy. And I tried applying for jobs locally, and it wasn't very easy. And it's small towns are weird. I'm going to tell you, I don't recommend if you're a city girl or a city boy, moving to a small town is not a comfortable feeling. For a guy, you're a creep or you're a loser. And for a woman, you're going to be ostracized by most of the community, except for maybe a couple guys that might want to get laid. But you're pretty much an outsider. You're never going to feel that effect. Whether you're feeling that SPO, I don't know. Maybe you broke the mold, and
Well,
you maybe it hasn't gotten you a girlfriend yet. But that's
no.
neither here nor there.
I think it kind of if you're going to be moving around a lot, because the people who do have a lot of relationships and friendships, they're the ones who stayed in touch with their friends from high school. They kept in touch with them. They went to their reunions. They stayed in the hometown they grew up in. They seem to always, maybe they don't always have a girlfriend, but they have some options, old friends, but I think if you're moving around, I think you definitely you're kind of, if you want to have a community, a feeling of community, I think you have to get one of these jobs where basically one of these jobs where you're not stuck in an office with the same people every day. you know.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point there. That's an excellent point. You gotta be in. And I'm not saying it, but as you get older, and then there's the other thing you got to realize. You're 35 now. Or what are you, 38?
Yeah, around there.
Okay, you're around there. I guess it's personal. Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
Um,
35. Yeah,
okay,
35.
35. Okay, I'm 49.
Well,
Age does not help you for several reasons. Number one, what a lot of people my age maybe take for granted is I think that in some weird kind of way, age discrimination is very subtle. But like one of the things I use to gauge it is like if you're at the gym and you're around a bunch of younger guys, they can tell you're older. They can perceive that you're not their age. So therefore, what does that equate to? It equates to you don't get any social interaction. So as you get older up there in age, when you let's say another 10 years from now, is when you're in your mid 40s, you're going to see this drop off in conversation with other people because you're going to see that as the people around you are younger. Because as you get older, most people are still younger. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of older people, but there's a lot of younger people too. And when you get into these venues like the gym and you're out there, whether you're in the locker room or you're in the just pump and iron, you're going to find out that you are alone. And I think age, Bill, is a factor in this thing too.
yeah, I would agree with that. And for whatever reason, I have a.
Hello?
Oh, I think you're still muted, Bill.
Oh wow, is
That's
it?
okay. He doesn't have to say anything. I don't
Oh.
know, SBO, what do you think about age thing?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and I say like it's a solution to working at a grocery store, but I mean, I think if you as you get older and older, you look kind of off like working an average job, in a community. If you're like in your 40s or 50s, like you're gonna look like. But I mean, a small town is different though, because I see a lot of people in their 40s and 50s working these average jobs, because their housing prices their mortgage is so low, or maybe it's paid off that they don't have to work a job where they're busting their ass,
Okay,
So
not trying to interfere, guys, but I want to do a little test. Okay, just because I hit the mute at the bottom where my mic is, and people in the chat were saying they were still hearing me, right? So I went up to my window and clicked the mute on there, and then you say you're not hearing me. Okay. So what I want to do is I just want to do a real quick test to make sure that if I muted myself, I muted myself because I don't want background noise coming into the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute it right now and say something, and then the people in the chat let me know if you hear me. Okay. So I'm going to go right now. Okay. Does anybody hear me in the chat? Okay. Just type yes if you hear me, and don't type if you don't, of course, because you won't be hearing me. Okay, I think that was it. I got two options for mute, and I was using the wrong one, so people are still hearing me. So I just unmuted it. Now you're hearing me, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now I know which one to hit. Because I was looking at the chat and I see people, well, we still hear you, Bill. And I'm looking down here and it says my mic's muted. And I'm like, now what's going on here? So I went up to the other one and hit the other one. Okay, that answers that. But I'll let you
yeah, I think
guys.
I think age I think age is like a big thing today. I think it's gonna make a lot in difference if you're moving. I think if you're older, if you're in your 30s or 40s, you're gonna look different when you're coming into a new town, especially a small town, than as opposed to when you're coming there in your 20s, moving for a job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're delusional to believe that age, we don't. These are subtle things we don't know. We can't. First of all, we don't know how old we look to other people. Even if you dye your hair, maybe you put a little ink in your hair, maybe your face looks a little younger. Maybe you had some Botox. We don't know how we're perceived by other people. I had a one woman at the gas station the other day, or a week or two ago, she said, I thought you were 29 years old. I thought that was ridiculous. I know I don't look 29. I don't look 49, but I surely don't look 29. Maybe somewhere in between. And so I told her, yeah, I'm 49 or whatever. So we were talking. So, anyways, we don't know how people perceive us, and then we have no way of gauging how younger people are treated outside the TFL community. Can we honestly say we 100% have an understanding of what the typical 22-year-old guy in the dating scene goes through. Maybe they have a vibrant social life and we don't know it. I mean, this is why I'm not quick to judge that everybody's living TFL or
No, well,
everyone's
no, not everybody is living TFL.
right.
I think
I
that
know this.
I think there's a lot more than what's ever being reported, but it's
Mhm.
definitely there's a whole lot that isn't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love this subject. I love talking about the economy and things like that. I love talking about the human condition because I think SBO and Bill and others that are listening to this, it's nice to kind of get a perspective. One thing I've told people, and I told this to Help by the Dashboard Light, is that a lot of these small towns are losing their male population because of demographic change, because of jobs. But don't make that think that you could just move there and find a girlfriend or find a social life because they're very close minded, a lot of these towns. I'm just giving people my experience, my advice. I will tell you the happy balance between this. If you don't like big suburban city life, you can move to a city of about 25,000, which is not a small hick town. 25, 30,000 is like a city like, say, North Olmsted, Ohio, 35,000. You can move to a city even of 20,000 where you can still have the big shopping complexes, but you're kind of away from big city and small town. I don't know, that's kind of a compromise in between the two.
Well, you
There's
can find a town under 10,000. Like mine's a town of 5,000, and it's got a Walmart. One of these big
Yeah, oh
superstores.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. But again, Walmart will bury itself anywhere where they can put their big tentacles there.
You actually
But
have a Walmart in a small town?
oh, they
Yeah.
have them everywhere. That's the biggest. That was the number one
Wow,
complaint.
that's a trip because I could tell you this, I've been in like 4 small towns in my life.
Yeah,
And to get to a Walmart, the closest was the last one I was in was Howard Lake. That was a 17 miles away. The other ones were
that's
like,
a well. You don't want to know something. That's a good thing. That keeps the mom and pop grocery stores in town. By the way, I will say this about small towns: mom and pop grocery stores have very good. If you have like a local IGA, those stores can keep their prices very competitive, if not lower than those normal stores, because they still have shipping. They still can charge less even for stuff. So I found out some of the local stores that I went to in the small town, the meat was not only better, but it was less money than the big supermarkets.
so Steve, you still have an IGA?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're all over. We have one in the city of Olmsted Township called Shakers IGA, and it's been around a long time. And the prices are like their prices are unbelievably cheap there. I mean, I was like it compares to all the big grocery stores in town, but it's more of a larger scale IGA. It's pretty nice though. Yeah, the IGAs are all over the country still.
Well, I had to ask because we used to have IGA up here in Iowa, and
Yeah.
all of them closed down.
No, they're still pretty. I don't know who their supplier is, but IGA, I don't know. It's called the Independent Grocers Association is the name of IGA, and they are very vibrant in a lot of areas still. They're
Yeah,
not
and
total.
that's why I was asking that because here in Iowa they closed down, and I haven't
Yeah.
ever been in Ohio, and I haven't seen an IGA since I was a kid. So that's the
Oh,
reason.
I
Wow.
didn't realize this. There's IGAs in Australia too. Now I don't know if it's umbrellaed under the same union or whatever, but the Independent Grocers Association, their prices, they have a distributor that distributes their stuff, and their prices are very good. I mean, you can buy like stuff. You have to do comparative shopping, but I could, if I did all my shopping at the local IGA here in town or within a couple miles of me, I could be fine. I would not be complaining about, well, I could save this. Their prices are very good there, and everything is just. And I found this out about Walmart. I went to a local grocery store, and not everything at Walmart is cheap. It's the illusion that everything's cheap. Some of the stuff, if you really pay attention to the items, some of the like cat food was more money over at Walmart on certain items, like cat treats were. And so I noticed like a change in prices. You have to be vigilant and know where the stuff is. But anyways, small town, big city, I don't know.
So
Well,
what would your thing, Steve, be? Okay, for like what's going on around in California, New York, and what's going around the United States with the rich people running people out.
Yeah.
What would your solution be for these people that their rent just got hiked to where they can't afford it and they were already paying so much they could never save for their own home?
Well,
So would you tell
I
them
I,
to move to a different state?
I would say they should move to a different state. They have to, because some states like New York are so high. Like the taxes in New York, I know the state taxes are high. And then you have to ask yourself, do you want to have the right to bear arms? If you do, you don't want to move to a state like Illinois. Ohio is a pretty liberal state with gun laws, but like it depends what your needs are. But a lot of people are so grassrooted in New York City that it's very hard for them to break that bind. I mean, if you lived in New York your whole life for 3 generations, it's not easy to just move. It's a psychological thing, but it's not like you just pick up your bags and say, "Well, screw New York, I'm going to move out of here." You may have a lot of family binds. If you're third generation Italian American, how do you leave New York? It's got to be tough, or any American there.
I think it could actually. I think what you're saying is right. I just thinking about the long run for some people. If you were breaking your butt to just barely keeping afloat, and then that happened to you, moving could also be something you may end up having to dump everything you have and go somewhere and hope that you can get a job to get back on your feet again when you move.
Well,
Because
and then here's another thing. Let's say you lived in New York City and you had a house worth $1 million, which is nothing in New York. So now you decide, do you want to become another one of those people that buys up a huge tract of land and then puts a big giant home on it? Then you become kind of part of the problem. You got to understand, these transplants that are leaving California to move to better pastures, they're not all millionaires. They're just millionaires by Montana standards. They're just millionaires by Idaho standards. When they move in and they take their $1 million of equity and move into an area, they they look like millionaires, and that's not a good thing either, because they're in essence doing the same thing. Instead of building a small home, they're all doing it in mass, and that drives up everything. So I don't know if there's a solution to this. I would say, please, if you live in New York, don't leave, because you might do the same thing that a lot of Chinese and wealthy people are doing.
yeah, I just I had to ask that question because in reality, moving can be quite expensive.
Yeah, but once you do it, Bill, I mean, yeah, it's expensive. Like, say it costs 5, 6 grand to rent a truck or get a big truck to do, let's say, drive 800 miles, 700, 600 miles. It might be worth it in the long run. At least you're out of there. I mean, Bill, you have to live within. Bill, I tell you something right now. If I could take what I've saved over the last couple years, I have some down points, or let's say the last year, I probably could live in a small town a year and a half, not have to work a job. Okay, that's not a lot of money. But that's on a small town budget. I think I could do it. That's how you have to think strategically.
Well, I have
If
nothing
you,
against what you're saying because I agree with you all the way across the
yeah,
board. Because I've never this is just me though. I don't push what I believe on other people. But as long as I have enough money to pay my dang bills and get a little bit of food, I'm fine.
yeah,
I don't care about money. I don't do what I do online for money, and
yeah.
that's just that. But that's me. That's what my heart is, and when I see what I see going on with the homelessness, and you realize a lot of these people are working their butts off to live in a tent. I'm like, wow. I
Yeah.
think I would dump everything I owned and leave that state just because of that.
Hey, Bill, I hate to cut you short. I got to do an internet online meeting with somebody. So I need to get off of here now, but I will listen to the re-upload. And SBO, if you can throw your 2 cents in while I'm offline, I'd greatly like to hear your perspective on things, because you seem to offer a lot of good messages.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have
All right,
no. So
I'll
see you
talk
later,
to you
Steve.
later,
All right.
Bill.
Yep.
Bye.
So, anyhow, before Steve came in and Espio was here, and I appreciate him being here. I originally didn't. I didn't even have myself in a meeting for Zoom so anybody could call in. Okay, so even Espio wouldn't come in, but Steve sent me a text and asked me to let him in. So, because the way I
Oh,
had
sorry
it
about
going,
that.
yeah, the way I had it going. Oh, and now I'm bleeding here. Okay, there you go. So anyhow, the way I had it set up, I originally was the only one in the chat. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh
That
yeah,
one,
I'll ask next time before I join.
yeah, and I don't care. I mean, I appreciate you being here. I'm not, I'm not upset about it. I just had to figure out the mute thing with my mic because I had stuff go on right as I done this.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about California and taxes, so I thought I could chime in. But yeah, I'll
Yeah.
ask next time before I call in.
What originally started this for me was the fact of watching what's going on around the country and realizing the population of homeless that keeps growing under everybody's nose and how people don't care and how they're fighting to try to stop landlords who own property from being able to hike the rent to whatever they want because you're not protected. And now that's going on in New York and in California, where they can come in, like in Silicon Valley, and they could buy the property and they could leave you in it, but they can hike your rent up so high that you couldn't afford to live there. And I think if you're already paying a high rent, you're trying to save to buy a house, you would never be able to save to buy the house if your rent's too high. And if somebody comes in and does something like that, I mean, so we
Yeah.
got a whole bunch of people that are homeless that are working full time jobs, okay? And to me, that right there is just complete insanity. It shows that we actually don't care about nobody but ourselves.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, you got to realize that the person buying the property, buying the home, they're taking a huge risk also. So like people will say, it's a common saying on online forums is saying like, okay, so if the taxes go up, well, that means that the landlord's just going to raise the rent for his for to rent out this house. Okay, utilities go up or whatever. Oh, they're just going to pass it on to the renter. But no, that's not true because the landlord doesn't get to choose the price that he rents out his house for. He can try to get a certain price, but mostly he's dependent on the market of renters who are willing to pay that money to get into that home.
So,
So a lot of times in the past, like mortgages were so high, interest rates were so high that a lot of people would buy a house and rent it for less than what they're paying on their monthly mortgage and utilities. But they did that just because they wanted to own it in the future. But so the landlord, he's taking a risk, like buying a lot of land and renting it out. Um, it can make you really rich, but it can also make you really poor because you don't know which way the housing market's going to go. I mean, what if you buy a bunch of rental units and while rent is high like this, and then the housing market changes and it goes right down. Well, now you're bankrupt because all that housing you bought, those rental units you bought, now it's you're not getting that much back in rent as you got. Plus, you got to deal with the tenants destroying the property, and all you can recoup from that is their deposit.
now
So
that part,
there's no.
now that part, I totally agree with you with because I did remodels for years, and whenever I was taking off remodels, okay, I worked for a few people, okay, few were landlords that I did rent. Then I worked for a billionaire that owned lots of property, and that's who I did my remodels for because he would buy old homes and I would go in and gutter them out and rebuild them and fix the house up, make it look new again inside and out. And then he would turn it on the market, right? But when he get behind on the rentals, then they would take me out. They would ask me to come out of the remodel and go help bring up the evictions that they done. And you're correct. People go in and tear up the damn property, and even the deposit don't cost the amount of repair.
Yeah, like me personally, I would not want to be a landlord. I wouldn't want to deal with renting out to some of these millennial couples who don't know how to change a light bulb, and they're calling you every few weeks or months because something went out. It's a job, and you got to deal with a lot of risk renting something out. I would rather just sell it and be done with it.
That I would agree with you on, because unless you got a lot of money to keep turning, you may make money off your rentals, but it'll also cost you an arm and leg when people come in and tear it up.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think there's any way to control the rental rents going up, because the landlord, especially in California, the law is on the renter's side. If
But
you
they
try to throw,
actually are, because you can play the system. I've seen people do this. If you get served an eviction notice, you can go down to your local courthouse and you could file a grievance against the eviction notice, and that stalls it off.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And
I
meanwhile, you
almost
keep doing that, and the landlord's not making any money, and you're in there 3, 6 months of free rent before the court and the sheriff's department finally step in and throw you out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I almost just a few months ago, I was looking at a property that was only for 120,000 for a little two-bedroom house, right? And so I call a realtor, and she tells me, "Yeah, there's a problem with this property, though." So okay, what is it? I'm expecting like a septic tank problem or well problem or something, but he says, Well, the person who owns it can't get the renters out of the property, so they want to pass this off to you.
Huh,
But
huh. I
what
know what you're saying. There is laws, but unfortunately, it goes like this. If you have to, like I'll give you an example of up in Florida where I was doing this at, right? So the rental laws in Florida was you had to serve up to 3 eviction notices, okay? Now, during the time that you're waiting while they're not paying rent, right? If your renter comes over to your house after you've served 2 evictions already and you're getting ready for the third, and they actually went to the courthouse and paid the money to fight it, right?
uh
If they come over to your house with half the money they owe you and say, I'll give you the next half, the other half this next week, right? To be caught up again, if you accept one dime from them, you're back to square one again.
Yeah. But I mean, what's the solution? I don't think it's in trying to control rent controls or anything like that. I think the solution is this whole thing that started with white people in the 1900s, where the parents, once the kids became 18, they kicked the kids out of the house and forced them to rent, forced them to pay the banks a mortgage, forced them to, go in debt for their school loans. Why? Because when I look at, because was raised in like an area with a lot of mixed ethnicities, so and I noticed like the Mexicans or the Asians, they would let their kids live with them, through their 20s. Some of them, by the way, would get married and still be in the same house. They wouldn't kick them out. They would be able to save up their money, and the couple would be able to work, and they would be able to buy a small house in cash, without even, but at least they would be able to save up to get a mortgage so they can get their 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 foot in the housing market, at the very least. Because I mean, think of how easy it would be to save up a down payment for a house if you're staying with your parents, you're helping them out. But but with white people, it's just like, well, once your kids are 18, you gotta kick them out so you can have your freedom. When you're 45 years old, these people, they want to kick their kids out so they can start going to bars and going traveling again.
Yeah. Well, I felt for they had a woman on here while I was watching this. I watched a couple of documentaries on this, and I started looking at reports from around the United States, and I spent the last couple of days looking at this stuff, and it just sort of got to me because when you got a 80-year-old woman that's been in her home for 45 years, okay, and her husband died, and they had taken a second mortgage out on it when he passed away, so of course she didn't get the house paid off because of that, right? And so now somebody else comes in and buys that damn place before it's sold, and now suddenly they want to up the price to where she can't afford it no more. Now the next thing you know, they're being evicted by the realtor, by the bank.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. That's what that's tough because anytime you tamper with the reverse, is a reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would rather, in that situation, I would rather sell the house and step down to a smaller place or something. I would rather do that before reverse mortgaging.
Oh yeah, but you're talking about an 80-year-old woman here that's lived in this house for 45 years. This is her home, and you're throwing her out on the street because of your self profit, you know. And you're a bank doing this, okay? Because I've been against the monetary system like forever because it's a slave system to begin with, okay? And that's why I said it's sort of off topic from the dating scene. That's the reason I did this today versus Saturday. It'll be dating scene topics, but that's the reason I've done that because the reality is money is something we all need to live. Money is a man-made thing, okay? And we've allowed private entities to control and own the monetary system, and they're using it as a weapon against the majority of the people. And then
Well,
our
yeah, I would say,
mindsets have become that too.
yeah, and even I think it relates strongly to TFL though, because think about some of these couple. Think about like a lot of women, if they got a good career and stuff, like, they can hire someone at dirt cheap prices, especially in California. You have cheap labor everywhere. They can hire someone dirt cheap to fix their roof, to do all this stuff. So it's like in the past, 100 years ago, before we were so capitalistic. um women had to get married, settle down, and get married because the guy would take care of fixing the vehicles and fixing up the house and that kind of thing. But today it's like everything's cheap. Everything could be bought out. As far as tasks around the house and so on.
Well, it is, and then on top of that, everything's been marketed to the female. And then, of course, we have all the double standards in society. And I mean, the list of things I could bring up would go on and on and on.
Well,
When it,
women choose 80% of purchases, right?
well, yeah, women are, responsible for a lot of the monetary. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, walk into any outlet to buy clothes, and the women's clothing section is always a whole lot bigger than the men's. Okay. And now
Yeah.
you could say, well, that's because women, blah, blah, blah. But the point is you go, everything's marketed to the female. And then, of course, with
Well,
the gender roles saying that, you're the provider, I've never agreed with gender roles. Not
no,
not because I'm being a bigot or a sexist, but the fact is I don't feel you as a man over a living. Do you see what I'm saying?
no, of course. Yeah, I don't think, especially now that I think everyone's equal now. Like, why should you have to?
Well,
Uh,
it's actually not equal because unfortunately, when things became equal 20 years ago, it's just like anything else. They want more and more and more and more and more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but as far as the clothes thing, I think, and material items in general, like most of these things are marketed at women, and the few things that are marketed at men, it seems like they are for men to try to acquire women. Like I think that's the reason why you see men spending money on nice clothes, $40,000 trucks and stuff like that. I think if a man wasn't interested in dating so much, he'd be fine with a cheap little Toyota or Saturn or whatever, something that just gets him to work and goes home.
I
But
I totally agree with you there because you got a lot of guys out there that'll go buy the big fancy truck or the car that's whatever and they'll spend all this money on this high stuff just to impress a female. And what you're going to get in return is a gold digger who don't love you but loves the materialistic shit you're providing for them.
yeah, but to some people this makes them happy. Like Richard Cooper, Entrepreneurs on Car, he says, yeah, that's how it is. So what? Basically, yeah, I drive fancy cars and do this so that I can basically women use me so that I can use them is basically what he says.
Yeah,
And
so yeah, but that's what we have. We have a system. We have a
yeah.
system in today's world where it's nothing but usury.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I wouldn't be happy. I'd rather be single than deal with that kind of usury kind of relationship.
Yeah, because well, that's to me that's not a relationship. It's just it is what it is. It's complete usury, you know. And if you're gonna be with somebody, so you're gonna be with somebody, they should be loving you for real for who you are, and you should love them for who they are. But we don't see that now, do we?
No, no, now it's completely materialistic, what instant gratification kind of society. If you don't have the butterflies you get in a relationship, then you get on your app and you find someone else to replace them.
Yeah. Well, it's sad, but I do get a little bit, envy over it because the monetary system. You realize our materialistic and our monetary system, our money, is all man created stuff that's actually got control of us. And I think that everybody deserves to have a roof over their head.
Well, yeah, even an animal in the wild is allowed to make his little home, in the wild. But if you're a human, I'm sorry you were born a human being, but because you're a human being, if you try to go off in the wild and make a little home, you'll have a county inspector come over and he'll measure the size of your little shack and he'll say, oh, now you owe this much money in taxes, due every twice a year. But but if you're an animal, you get to make a home wherever you want. But
Oh
as
well,
a human,
yeah, that's correct. I mean, if you're a human and you go get yourself a little piece of land or whatever, and even if you don't build nothing, they're going to charge you tax on it every year. Even if you paid it up in cash and paid it off, they're going to still tell you owe money for taxes. And then if you go out, let's give you an example. You have the skills to build your own house, right? You break your tail and you buy all the supplies and you store it, and then you start building your house. And you buy everything you pay taxes on. Let's just say you go to Lowe's or McNards or Home Depot, wherever you go, and you buy everything little by little and you get your house completely built. Now suddenly these same people show up and say, oh, they're not only inspecting everything you do, but now they're going to charge you taxes on the stuff that you already paid taxes for purchasing it.
The value you upgrade the home, the value you upgraded, they're gonna tax you for that too. Yeah.
Right, and you're the one that put the house together. You're the one who built it. All the labor was yours,
Oh,
right?
improvements. Yeah, they're taxing you on the
If
improvements.
you
Right.
built it from the ground up, I mean, everything that you bought from the ground up was paid off in full and you paid the taxes on it. And suddenly, oh, well, the value of everything you bought, you put together here is this much. So now you owe us this much.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if you're a guy who's living minimalistically and you buy a house, 1 or 2 bedroom house, I don't think that the taxes are that bad. At least in California, like mine are 1,300 a year. I mean, that's what, $150 a month or so.
Well, for being in
It's not bad.
California and being in a location where your taxes is $1,300 a year, you're actually pretty darn lucky. Because Steve's
Yeah.
taxes is costing him like $4,000 a year.
Oh my God. If my tax was that high, I would just rent. I wouldn't want to own.
And then it does. It actually is going with where you're at. If you go where
Yeah.
the real estate market's higher price, like when I left Minnesota, I mean, they might as well call themselves the new Colorado or the new California because I'm talking a little rink town where my son was working that has really nothing to offer in a town. They have a grocery store and a movie theater and a couple bars, and that's about it. If you want to go to Walmart, you're driving town. If you want to go anywhere else, you're leaving town and driving an hour away to get to everything, right? And of course, they
Yeah, but
got.
I think for guys like me, minimalists, like what kind of shopping do you need? Like, do you
I
need to?
understand that, but what I'm getting at is this is a little nowhere town, right?
Oh yeah, why should
Uh,
they charge that much in taxes? Yeah, that's what you're
Okay,
saying.
well, but here you are. This little nowhere town, a two-bedroom apartment will cost you $1,000 a month.
Oh my.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
there you are. And the property taxes, I was looking at the real estate back there, and there's houses that are over 100 years old that need. The one house was for sale. It was a fixer-upper, and it blew me away. I went by and looked at it. The house needed, you'd probably had to put a sink $30,000, $40,000 into it to put it back together again, right? They
Wow.
wanted $110,000 for that house.
Oh my gosh.
And this is in this little rink don't nowhere town. And when I see that kind of stuff, it just fires me up because this is greed. That's all that is greed.
Well, that's greed is part of the game when you have a very capitalistic society. That's going to be. Well, I mean, I'm not bashing capitalism here. I mean, I love going to the store and having all these options and stuff. But the bottom line is, that, if it doesn't make money, the person selling the home is going to get the top dollar they can from it. It's just like with the dating market too, Bill. It's like, you can't really blame women if they're going to try to get the best quality, best looking guy with the most money. They're gonna try to get that because they got guys lined up who are willing to pay that price. You can't.
That's absolutely correct. I'm on your side with that one.
Yeah,
Okay, that is absolutely correct. This is the reality of what we're living in.
yeah. So
You
we can't.
know,
You can't really say we can't really complain. Oh, women are this picky and they want these high list expectations. What we have to do is complain about the guys who are willing to put their money, time, effort, and lifestyles on the line and put everything on the line. It's like it's the same with the housing market. When the housing market prices are so high, you don't blame the guy selling the home. No, you blame all these guys throwing their money down, paying 2 to 3 times the actual value of the home. That's who you blame.
that's correct. That's absolutely correct. I mean, you're right on point with that one. You know, it's sad the reality that we're living in. And then when you look at TFL itself, you get it's doing nothing but growing. Okay. And there's lots of factors behind it. But one of the major factors is NWO and social engineering. But I think we're already too far gone because we live in a
Oh yeah.
capitalist society. You have all the social engineering that's gone on for so long, and people's mindsets. I mean, when the mindset is in our country to look out for number one. And we all know that number one is yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And so maybe I'm the misfit here. I'm the outcast. Okay. because I actually care for people and I only want what's right for everybody so that everybody could have a decent life. And I don't wish TFL on anybody. I wish that people could meet somebody that loved them for who they are. But that's
I think
like
that's
finding a needle in the haystack nowadays because nobody knows
yeah.
how to treat each other.
Actually, well, I don't think I think you're normal. That's a very manly, that's a very patriarchal way to look at life. I mean, if you look at like um, a patriarchal system like the Amish, for example, that's how guys think in that society. They think group survival. Let's do what's best for the group, you know. But as you go into rampant materialism and feminism and this matriarchy we have in the first world countries today, with matriarchy, you don't have this men thinking empathetically for the whole tribe. Now you have, when you have today, you have uh, competition. You know, when you have like a um, matriarchal society, you have you know, you have all the guys competing with each other for the top stuff. You know, and that's what we're kind of going into. But I think a patriarchal system is designed and runs off of men working together, like the Amish, or in societies in the past. Uh, you look at these patriarchal societies or and religions where they look at how harsh they treat, you know, cheating with your neighbor's wife. You know, like in the Bible, like this is like a punishment. This is like a you something that's a big taboo. You know, but today it's common today because we're in a matriarchal society where everyone's trying to slit each other's throat to get ahead and to, you know.
They are. That's exactly what we're seeing going on. Everybody's slicing each other's throat to get ahead, and they don't care who they step on to do it. And that kind of stuff offends me. But then that's me, okay? It offends me because I actually care about what's right for everybody. I don't
It's
want to
good.
see anybody suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. But it's kind of this kind of mindset is more rare today because we're in a competitive society where everyone's just kind of out for themselves and their own family.
That's
And
what, yeah, that's why I'm still looking for my spaceship because I know I'm on the wrong planet.
well, you know, the one thing is, but if there's ever any kind of collapse, you know, these kind of matriarchal societies where everyone's trying to throw their brother under the bus, they don't really last long against a patriarchal society of men who work together and have each other's backs, who don't cheat on each other's wives. You know, the two a masculine society will always prevail. You know.
Yeah. Well, but that's always been me. That's why, I get up here and I fight for the men because you don't have nobody standing up for the men. Men are throwing each
Yeah.
other underneath the bus for their own selfish gain.
Yeah.
And nobody's standing up for the men. We got 30 years of female or male bashing all over the media on a regular basis, and there's nobody standing up for men. That's the reason I try to get men to stand together.
Yeah, they need to start standing together. Otherwise, it's just female requirements in a relationship are going to just go higher, higher, higher. If everyone started doing the pickup artist thing and trying to looks max and money max and all this stuff, well, they're just setting the bar higher and higher and higher.
They are. You're profiting on human suffrage. Suffering is what you're doing. You're making money off of other men that can, PUAs. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. They're making money off of lying. And to me, it just blows my mind because we were little kids. At least when I was a little kid, played with the girl down the street. When you was in school, you could play with the girl. You talked, you communicated just fine. Then suddenly, as soon as you get to a certain age, oh, there's a special way to talk to a female, and and it's like,
Yeah,
wow, what happened to us? Do we fall and hit our head? What?
I don't know. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for letting me on. I got to get to work though.
Yeah, well, you go do your thing, and I'm going to cut the live stream anyhow because I was really up here for rant on the monetary system and the stuff we talked. So,
Yeah, it's a good topic. I like talking about the that too, and I think the New World Order has a lot to do with you know, they have a lot of reasons for trying to mess up the relationships today, and I agree with you there. Is and the
yeah,
monetary system is only a way of controlling. You know, it's only a way of uh, feeding what our you know, with usury. I mean, an average mortgage, like you're paying three times the cost of the house in the mortgage. You know. So it's just
Well,
the way.
you are, and with the usury, I mean, you're lucky you're in a small town. You got your house, and you actually got the house, and your taxes at least are reasonable to where you can afford them every year. So that's not no big thing for you there. So there, I'm happy for you. And in California, on top of it, when you go looking at everything else in California, I think you've done pretty damn good for yourself.
Yeah, for now. Well, like Steve said, it can always change though.
Yeah,
So you
unfortunately.
know, you always got to be ready. You always got to be ready to be fluid. Not pack your stuff. Not pack your house with too much stuff. Be ready to move, and when things get bad, when a sewage company takes over and starts jacking up their rates or something, you can't. You got to just go with the way. Go with the punches of life.
Yeah, that's all we can do. But yeah, my rant was on the monetary system today, and that's the reason it's an off day because Saturday night I will leave for the dating scene. I don't mind talking about the dating scene now, it's just because it does go into the dating scene, but I felt that some of this stuff should go on a different live stream. So,
It's good to talk about other stuff. Yeah, and plus, I think it's related in a lot of ways. It's a lot of the kind of stuff crosses over.
yes, now that I do agree because it does
Yeah.
cross over and it is related. But with
Yeah.
that being said, I'm going to get out of here and hey, thank you
All
for
right.
joining and to everybody
Yeah.
else.
Thank you.
I'll be back Saturday and y'all have a good one.